Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rizwan, and I'm an NLP practitioner. And the subject today that I'm going to be discussing with you is called communication using NLP. Let's first talk about what is communication. Most of us know what communication is. We communicate daily with people. We communicate through mobiles, phones, different applications. But do you really think that we are communicating to the potential that we need to? Is our communication really enhanced by the way we are communicating on a day-to-day basis? So I'm going to talk about how you can actually enhance your communication skills. Because from my personal point of view, we have become so engrossed in our telecom and apps where we are not talking much but only sharing messages, and that kind of a communication is basically hindering the skills that we have naturally as human beings to communicate on a one-to-one basis. So what is communication? The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. This means that when two people are communicating, most of the time, both of the people who are communicating think that they have got the message from each other. But this is far from the truth, because most of the time, there are a lot of things lacking in the way two people are communicating. Communication is a skill that you can learn. It's like riding a bicycle or typing. If you are ready to work at it, you can rapidly improve the quality of every part of your life. Now, who is talking about it? It's Brian Tracy, a very well-known personality in self-development. He's written several books about self-development, and he says it's like riding a bicycle. So are we really using our communication to the maximum? Is this something very relevant to people? When one of the person is talking about a subject, is the other person really getting the subject that he wants to? The message is not really getting through. So there are two people communicating, and each of them are communicating at two different levels. The more elaborate our means of communication, the less we communicate. And as I just mentioned to you, we are on the net. We are sending messages, emails, WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook messages. But how many of us on a day-to-day basis really talk to people on a face-to-face? Do we really look at people, look at their perspective on a one-to-one, sitting down together? How many of us do that? So, looking at this particular picture, the communication that we see in this picture is so accurate. There is eye contact, there is a handshake, there is a posture which shows the confidence that both of the people are communicating on a same level. So that could be another way of really seeing how communication could be enhanced. Now, coming to communication using NLP, most of the people sitting here in the audience would like to know what is NLP. NLP is Neuro Linguistic Programming. The full form of the acronym NLP is Neuro Linguistic Programming, where neuro stands for the nervous system through which experience is received and processed through the five senses. And which are the five senses? The visual, auditory, kinesthetic, gustatory, and olfactory. So the linguistic is the language or non-verbal communication through which neural representations are coded, ordered, and giving the meaning to our neurological messages through our body languages and through our non-verbal communication and through the language that we speak to the people. Now, how can we program both the neuro and the linguistic? The ability to organize our communication and neurological systems to achieve specific desired goals. Are we achieving desired goals on a day-to-day basis when we are communicating with people?
No, sometimes we are in a stress moment, so it is not possible. So your message is not reaching to that other person.
So that is something which is a hindrance in most of our communication, right? So
e-media is one point is e-media. You are favored with the e-media. This electronic media is nowadays with language. Those understand he can communicate. Otherwise, is a lack of it. So.
no, that is another thing. But on a one-to-one basis, are we able to communicate through our talk, through our messages? So that is where we need to maximize our communication skills. And NLP actually teaches you how to do that. Now, giving you some history of where NLP originated. NLP originated in 1970 through the study by Dr. Richard Bandler and John Grinder at the University of California. And they were asking a fundamental question. And this fundamental question is how someone who excels in a field is different from someone who's merely average or poor performer. So there are people in the same field, but some are successful while others are poor performers and failures. So why is that? That was the big question they wanted to address. This led them to the discovery of how we create a model of perceived world and organize our thinking that influences our skills and capabilities. So each one of us is actually creating a model of the world around us. So each person has a different model of what he is looking at. And based on that model of thinking, he influences his skills and capabilities. So someone who is a low performer has a different model, and someone who is an achiever has a different model. So let's see how the models are created. They formulated a modeling technique under the name NLP. This was later used to model experts and leaders from diverse fields like business, sales, sports, and education. Now, you might know a lot of politicians right now who use NLP. One of those politicians is Obama. He uses a lot of NLP in his presentations. And a lot of sports people are using NLP to enhance their performance. And that has really helped them to excel in their field. NLP has become a proven model of change, transformation, and leadership. It provides you a skill to be able to find out what kind of communication influences other people. So when you're sitting down across to another person, you need to relate to him rather than trying to put out your message. That is what we need to understand when we are communicating on a one-to-one basis. So if you do have any questions, the reason I would like to say is, because this subject is on communication, I would rather that we have an interactive session and enhance our communications. All right? It's based on the overall operational presupposition that all behavior has a structure. And that structure can be modeled, learned, taught, and changed. So if you have got the structure of an achiever, you know the structure of how an achiever becomes successful, you can actually model the same structure and become a successful person and an achiever. So you do not necessarily need to go into life as a mediocre person or as an unsuccessful person. So you can model, learn, and change your communication skills. NLP has evolved as an innovative technology, enabling the practitioner to organize information and perception in the way that allows them to achieve results that were once inconceivable. So there have been examples of people who have been so unsuccessful in life, and using the NLP skills have really taken amazing transformations, coming out of certain difficult situations in life and totally challenging those scenarios and becoming successful. So that is where NLP really helps you to overcome your challenges. It's a powerful resource for achieving excellence in effective communication and listening. So communication, usually people think communication is talking. But how many of you would think that communication is just talking and not listening?
Unless one is a good listener, he cannot be a good communicator.
Fantastic. So listening is a skill which needs to be developed in each and every one of us, which is very much lacking. When we sit across in a group, people tend to want to talk about themselves or what they think is right. But very few people would like to listen to what the other person is saying, because this information that we get as listeners is so important for us to be able to relate to the other person in a better way. Because the person at the other end, if you're talking only about yourself, is not able to relate to you the way that you would want to, because the message, as we say, is not on the same frequency or is not being communicated the same way. Goal setting. NLP is a very powerful tool for setting your goals for the next month, a year, or 5 years, and how you can achieve goals through the NLP process. Sales excellence. I can tell you that sales excellence, because being from a sales field, I think NLP has really opened my eyes as to how you can enhance your sales skills. Earlier, before understanding NLP, I used to go on a sales visit and I saw juniors who would just sit across the customer and pull out the brochure without even trying to build a rapport with the customer or without even trying to understand the needs of the customer. They try to promote their product or services. So this is very important as far as NLP is concerned. As a sales excellence tool, NLP really takes over any other tool in that matter. Management and leadership competencies. When working in a team, in a managerial level, in a corporate environment, you need to understand the perspective of your team, your managers, and the organization as a whole. So NLP helps you in better understanding those aspects of how to be a leader and a better manager. Personal effectiveness. When you talk about personal effectiveness, it's more about on your personal level with your friends, your family members, and so on. It has helped people enhance their personal skills in their personal life. Changing habits and beliefs. Now what you see here is a picture. This is how we perceive our life. So each one of us sitting here is looking at life from their own perspective. And how do they get the perspective of the life? Through their sensory modalities. And these sensory modalities, one of them is the visual. So once a person is born, he looks around him, and whatever he sees around him is the territory. We define it as the territory. But each and every one has a different map of this territory, because he is taking in something which is exclusive to him based on his own experiences. Like for example, when you sit in a movie theater and watch a movie, each one is looking at something which is interest to him. Someone is looking at the landscape, someone is looking at the dresses, or someone. So everyone has a different perspective of the same visual. So everyone records and makes a map into their memory of those specific points that they are interested in. The auditory aspect is where you take in the sound and the things that you hear throughout your life and record them into your data as memories. And these memories stay with you, which then get used in future. So you might have listened to a very melodious song 10 years ago, and if you listen to it now again, it basically brings back those memories. Kinesthetic is the feelings and emotions that you attach to any incident in your life. These are all information that you record into your memory. The two others, which is the olfactory and gustatory, we do not really pay much attention to. The three main is the visual, auditory, and the kinesthetics. So this picture actually shows you a better depiction of how we create our own behaviors, which is we take in the external events, we actually filter it. As I said, we filter it, we do not take in everything that we can, because the brain does not have the capacity to actually take in all the information at the same time. So you only take in what you think is interesting to you. You delete, distort, and generalize all the information and record it into your internal representation. And these internal representations basically create your values, your beliefs, and your thoughts, which later on come into your behavior. And this behavior comes out through your physiological nature. The way you respond to people is based on your information that you have. So if you are talking to someone, you would go back to past times and bring out some information that is relevant to this discussion and relate to that person on that aspect. So that's how you create your behaviors. The other aspect of NLP is eye accessing cues. Many of us have not really thought about this on a very detailed aspect. How many of us actually look at people in the eye to actually look at how they are thinking? Fantastic. So this is very important when you are communicating to people, to understand their eye accessing cues. As you can see in this diagram, this is a picture of a person you might be facing as you are looking into his face, directly towards him. So on the left hand side, you see the constructed images. When you say the constructed images, on the top right hand is you are constructing an imaginary image. So if I asked you, how would you like to have your dream home? You would construct your own dream home, and that would be a construction which was not real. And that is where, if you ask someone about something and his eyes move to the top right hand side, you know he is actually constructing from an unreal image, and that could be a way of lying. So these are some cues that you can understand. The top left hand side is where you are remembering images from the past. So if I would ask you, please talk about your old home of the past, so you would give an exact description of it. And if your eyes were moving on the top left hand side, I would be more assured that you are giving me a fact and not an imaginary lie. So that is a very powerful tool for people to understand whether the person sitting at the other end is really giving you facts or he's just making up stories. So isn't it a powerful tool? The other is the auditory.
If he is not imagining from the left side, which is
So if I'm sitting across to you and if I ask you about your old home and you are looking on the top left hand side,
Her left hand.
on her left,
No, my left hand. That
yeah,
is I'm speaking, I'm recalling.
yes, so you are recalling your old information that you have stored about your old home.
The
So it's
semantic memory.
exactly, it's exactly uh, giving the accurate details about something which is existent.
But if I look right, that means I'm making it up.
Yeah, if I would ask you, how would you like to have your dream home, which is non-existent at this moment, so you are building up an image which tells you you're constructing an image. And knowing that way, if you ask someone about something and he gives you a reply with his eyes in that particular direction, you can be more sure that these are not facts and these are being actually constructed through his imagination. So that is one of the aspects. The other is the auditory. If you look at someone who's looking on the right hand side, he is actually constructing sound. So he could be a musician, he would like to maybe create sound, and that's where all the creation happens on the auditory level. On the left hand side, he is remembering sound. So maybe if 20 years ago you had a very romantic environment and you had listened to a very melodious song, and today if that song is being played somewhere, it brings back those memories. So you are actually recollecting those memories which have taken place. And on the right hand bottom, you can see that he is kinesthetically checking out his feelings. So there are kinesthetic people who make decision based on feeling. So he might be wanting to feel the right way to make a decision. That's where he makes his decisions from. And on the left hand side, there's an internal dialogue. There are many people who have an internal dialogue of whatever is happening around them. And that way they actually try and make a better decision of things that they want to do on a day-to-day basis. So it's an internal dialogue with themselves. So the representational system, the language that we use in is an indication of the way that we think. So when I'm sitting across someone and he would start talking, I would want to understand the language that he uses. So someone might say, I see that you have been very hardworking and I would like to give you a raise. So when he says I see, he is actually using his visual representations. So the words are where you can actually be more accurate to understand his representations and talk to him in the same representation. That way you are on the same wavelength, on the same frequency, and he understands you better. There could be a person who would say that I heard that you started a business. How is it going? So you need to answer to him in the same language that he is discussing with you. So he is talking to you on an auditory level. So understanding the language of the person is really very important. So effective listening is the bottom line of building trust in your communication. So if I was going to be talking to a visual person in an auditory language, he would not be able to grasp the same language. So I need to understand those aspects while communicating. If you listen to your own and other people's language, you will begin to notice what their patterns and preferences are. So that needs a lot of practice. You need to have workshops where you need to practice on a regular basis the eye movements to understand the eye movements, to understand the language of the person who you're communicating with. So that comes with a lot of practice, basically. Matching a person's language preference is an excellent way of increasing rapport. So you All of us know what rapport would be, right? Rapport. When we are talking about communication, rapport seems to be the most important aspect before we actually reach into any kind of discussion. Now, coming to submodalities, each representational system has a specific distinction within that makes it different. Now, we were just talking about sub-representational systems, the way people talk. That also has an in-depth distinction. These distinctions are called submodalities. We can learn to change our submodalities at any time. This allows us to change and affect our internal state, which in turn makes a difference to our physiology. So if I am actually representing myself on a visual level, I can actually go into my thoughts and change the details or the submodalities to be able to enhance my thoughts or my performance, which was not there earlier. So what are these submodalities? For visual, it is more about association, disassociation, the color, the frame, the location, and the distance of what you are actually looking at in your perceptions. This could be changed to enhance your actual response to that particular stimuli. Auditory, which is the sound, the volume, the tone, and the distance of the sound, can be modified to enhance your auditory skills and enhance your response. And last is the kinesthetic, which is the intensity. Kinesthetic is the emotions that you feel whenever you are into a particular situation. So if you are feeling very good, how can you actually enhance those good feelings? You can actually change these submodalities within you and maximize them to enhance your good feeling, your joy or your happiness, to maximize your performance in that particular moment. As I was just mentioning to you, the rapport. Many of us, we actually go into a discussion with people without taking into consideration this particular aspect, which is rapport. The structure of matching. Matching is the process where you adjust the same aspects of your own external behavior to approximate the same aspects of the other person's external behavior. So if I am sitting across a person and he is in a particular body language, I need to go into modifying my body language to match his body language, whereby I connect to him on a better and enhanced level, and then be able to bring him to a better understanding of my communication. So this is one of the aspects of matching. Ongoing process of matching is called pacing. So you can actually pace the body language of a person and bring him to a leading process where you want to lead him to whatever results you would like to achieve from that communication. So if, for example, someone is sitting in a more tied arm position, I could actually slowly replicate his body language. And after some time, while I am talking to him, I could open my arms slowly. And that will basically bring out a response from the other person, which will relax him and bring him into a more open and better communication. So that way, I am actually bringing him into a more relaxed mode, and from opening him up from his inhibitions. There are a lot of people who actually come into a discussion with tied arms, so they may have certain reservations, and that is somewhere we need to bring in rapport to be able to bring them out of their reservation. And the body language, which is the physiology, once they bring out their body language, which will totally change their neurological aspects also. The mastering the art of matching will develop your ability to establish rapport, as I just mentioned to you, with anybody. Building trust through non-verbal communication. Now, mirroring is a part of matching. Matching body movement is the best way of having a good rapport with people. Now, what is crossover mirroring? I've just mentioned to you about mirroring as far as replicating or copying the other person's body language. But if you think that it's very obvious for the other person and he is becoming uncomfortable, or you might think that he might notice that body mirroring posture, you could also do something which is called crossover mirroring, whereby you are taking a non-verbal body movement and mirroring it with a different part of the body. So it could be matching the breathing of that person and to your speech tone. So that way you are indirectly, in a more subtle way, matching his frequencies to communicate better with him. So the basic rapport test is, if you lead, they follow. So the first stage is where you are pacing his body language. And the second stage, after some time, once you have developed the body language, is where you lead him to the kind of body language that you want. As I just said, that someone who's reserved, and after some time I would like him to open up. That is what I want him to do. He needs to open up to my communication. He needs to open up to what I'm trying to tell him, which is my leading and pacing process. Now, another aspect of NLP is anchoring. Anchoring is a process of associating an internal response with some environmental or mental trigger. So how many of you, when you listen to a song on the radio or TV, go back to old memories?
Almost everyone. It's bound to.
How many of you, when you come into a scenario, you immediately get into that mode or mental state which puts you into that positive or negative state? So what is that? That is an anchor. You have anchored yourself to that song, or you have anchored yourself to that particular environment. So every time you go into that environment, you automatically get into that physiological and neurological state. That is what anchoring is all about, and you can actually enhance your day-to-day activities by anchoring yourself to positive thoughts and positive attitudes. Anchoring can be a very useful tool for helping you to establish and reactivate the mental process associated with creativity, learning, concentration, and other important resources. So for example, I am not feeling very well today and I want to actually enhance my performance. I need to go into a more positive environment. So I need to bring out or bring thoughts of positive times where I have been enthusiastic and positive, and then bringing in my state into that, I can anchor myself and be positive throughout the day. So there are workshops where you can practice anchoring and be able to enhance your day-to-day activities and to maximize your performance. We are coming to a very important aspect of NLP, which is called meta model. Many of us, we do represent our world with certain words, but there is a lot of things which are unsaid during our discussions. We only give small bits and pieces of our representation. And why do we do that? That is because we are deleting, distorting, and generalizing our representation. And a lot of things which are unsaid are still in our thoughts and memories, which we have not actually brought out. So the meta model, adapted from the transformational model of language, provides an explicit method of understanding and changing a person's impoverished models. How does that work? With the artful use of meta model, the practitioner can involve a person in recovering the deep structures, the full linguistic representation. Now the example for this is, some people say my boss rejected my proposal. Is that a complete sentence if I would ask any one of you?
Cannot.
Because there is a lot of things unsaid within that sentence, which is a lot of distortion, deletion, generalization, and which the person is not able to express. So why is he not able to express? We need to go into the meta model and understand his thoughts about this particular statement. And this statement is incomplete. He is a proven leader. This sentence also seems to be quite ambiguous, or how can someone be a proven leader? What are the proofs? So that sentence is too much of a generalization.
Too many assumptions.
Exactly. So that is created by that individual's own thought process, because he has certain deep down thoughts which he is not able to express. She makes me feel horrible. Now, can you tell me how can feeling horrible would be able to be identified by one particular person? So exactly. So where I would like to be more appropriate is that people make up these sentences which are very incomplete, very ambiguous, which tells us that there is a meta model which needs to be used to understand them in a better way. Reframing, it's a very interesting thing. Reframing is very important for most of us. Reframing is taking a negative and neutral situation and turning it around into something positive and useful. Now, this will be very interesting for you because we all do this. I will not fail. How many of us say this word? Any of you, do you relate to this sentence? I will not fail. Exactly. Many of the people, they actually use this negating words, where if I would ask you, don't think about a pink elephant, you are actually using your visual thoughts not to think about a pink elephant. So you are actually thinking about a pink elephant. That is where we need to be using affirmations or positive words rather than using I will not fail, I will succeed. So you can reframe your words, your thoughts on a daily basis to be more positive and being more enthusiastic. Instead of saying how are you, you can ask, has your day been productive? Why would you reframe this? If I would ask you, has your day been productive? Would you be able to answer me in a one word?
No, it is not so many things we are doing the whole day.
So you will basically be interacting with the other person, communicating better, and be able to enhance your communication skills and have a real concern about whether his day has really been productive or not. We go along the streets or we meet people and say, how are you doing? And the other person says, yeah, good, great. But we really don't relate or communicate in the way we need to. People will not be able to pass it off as a meaningless remark. Right? So you will communicate better with your bosses, your colleagues, your family members, because they will feel really that the person at the other end really cares whether I am really feeling good today. Another part of NLP is strategy. A specific syntax or external and internal experience which consistently produces a specific outcome. So if I would ask someone, how do you get angry? That is understanding the other person's strategy of how he gets angry. If I would be able to understand the process, step-by-step process of what makes him angry, and he actually opens up and tells me that this is what happened, and that's the next stage, and the third stage, and the fourth stage. So you have a consistent relationship of why he becomes angry, and then you can actually modify that strategy and get him to get out of that particular state. So that is called a strategy. Many of us, we use these strategies on a day-to-day basis, not understanding. Strategies involve everything we do. All our daily activities generated and maintained by strategies. Whether or not we finish what we do or is governed by strategy. So maybe you start something and you don't complete it. That is also a strategy, because after completing a process, you basically stop doing it. So you need to understand what strategy is being worked in that process, and to be able to change that strategy whereby you can enhance your performance and complete that work. We have strategies for love, decision, relaxation, hate, motivation, tension, and learning. So you have strategies for everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. You need to understand how your personal strategy is working for you or not working for you. So the components of strategy are how you can find out how to persuade someone to make a decision in your favor. So now it is not only coming to your strategy, but understanding the strategy of the other person sitting across the table. If I am able to understand his strategy, I am able to persuade him. First, find out how they make their sort of decision and structure your communication accordingly. The next step is to utilize the strategy by feeding back information to the person in the order and sequence that it was elicited. So if I know what strategy he is using in the verbal, auditory, and kinesthetic form, I will be able to put my strategy forward in the same order to be able to communicate better with him. That is the way I can enhance my communication. Once you know what the strategy is, you can structure your persuasion process in the same way. So let me ask you about this particular picture here. How does it look? Are we all looking at it? Just put your full focus on this. How do you see it? Take in the complete picture. What is the feeling that you have while you are watching this picture, you're looking at this picture?
Happiness.
Is there some kind of a feeling within you?
There are contrasts. And
Does it put you in a calming position? Does it give you that peace and calm and quiet that you are looking for? Exactly. So whatever you see in your day-to-day life, it has visual, auditory, and kinesthetic effects on you. So if you are in a positive environment, that will basically enhance your positivity, it will enhance your outcome, and it will give you the power to perform throughout the day. Now it is something which we all need to understand. What is our strength? What kind of representations that we make on a day-to-day basis? Are we visual, auditory, kinesthetic? This can only be done when you actually go through a workshop of understanding your own representations. Once you understand how to control and manipulate your own representations, you can enhance your skills.
But then suppose this is a very nice picture and everything.
Mm.
It all depends upon what phase of life or what I am going through to look at this as well.
Okay. Now, if I tell you that if you keep looking at this picture, whatever phase of life you are, after a certain time, you will definitely go into a calming mode, because it's how you look at that particular picture. Everyone has no, within this particular moment, everyone has their own challenges. There's no one in this world who is not facing challenges. But it's how you interpret that challenge, whether you take it as a positive or you take it as a negative to put you down. That is how you can actually either be a performer, or achiever, or a non-performer. So it's the values, the beliefs that you have taken that will take you forward, or that will hinder your performance. So there are some limiting beliefs that we have been taking forward from our childhood, which in some way is hindering our growth or our success. So we need to understand what are those limiting beliefs, to break down or dismantle those limiting beliefs, and in that space to build beliefs that can enhance or strengthen yourself to be successful. So all that you do right now while you're listening to me are actually representations. You are actually going into your beliefs, your past thoughts, trying to judge this particular scenario. So everyone from this particular room would be taking out something, maybe an advantage or a disadvantage, based on his own perceptions. So that's the answer to this, Asif. So is there anything that we need to discuss?